Hey mamas, how are you? We are skipping the typical intro today because I really want to just talk to you and I have so much to say and I don't want this episode to be any longer than it needs to be because I get it. You are a busy mama. You want what you came here for and you want to get as much value out of your time as you possibly can. So we are just jumping right into the episode. We have a super special guest today. I connected with her virtually, and have you ever just connected with somebody and felt so immediately like this is my person, this is somebody that really lights me up, and you could just talk to them for hours and not feel like the conversation would ever dull down or stop, and you just want to soak up all of the goodness that they have to offer and tell you. And Sara Marie Miller is just that person for me. And so I hope that she is that to you and you just listen to her and really grasp what you came here for and that you find some valuable information about herbs and how we can heal our body and how important it is during pregnancy and postpartum to really be taking that time to nourish our body and what different herbs and flowers and really cool things can do for us and really just getting back to our roots and getting into practices that have been going on for thousands of years instead of the modern way of things that maybe have only been around for a couple hundred of years. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you want more, Sara has her own podcast as well. We talk about that. And we really just dive into so many things. And so let me know what you think. Message me and tell me what you loved about this episode. Enjoy. Hi, hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I am so happy and excited and honored to have you here today to chat with us. But before we get started into our conversation, I would love for you to introduce yourself and share who you are with our listeners.
Oh my gosh, Sara Marie, it's such a treat to be with you. Another Sara Marie. Thank you again for having me here. A little bit about me. I'm a Sara Marie as well, Sara Marie Miller, and I have a podcast called Thyme in the Studio that I have been doing for about 4 years now, and it's a nourishing space for creatives and plant people. It also ends up being a lot about birth work and doula work and postpartum. Because I am a postpartum doula, I mostly focus on overnight care. And then I'm also a clinical herbalist and functional nutritionist and flower essence practitioner. So I just love helping people to feel wonderful. And so I teach workshops and courses and have my podcast. So I love working with education and working with people one-on-one as well and in small group settings. So just learning how to feel good through creative expression, through food, through, sipping on tea and working with flower essences. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm so excited to share with you some ways that people can feel more nourished and supported in postpartum.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's something that's so unique and also like one of those like lost art sort of things, like into who we are, like our human design and like understanding like simple things sometimes that can really help nourish us in ways that are just often in our culture, our society, like very much overlooked. So how about starting a little bit of just giving us a brief explanation of like, what is an herbalist? Like, what is a flower essence practitioner? Like, what goes into that? And like, how did you get involved in doing what you do now?
Yeah. Thank you for all the questions. I would say, what is an herbalist? An herbalist is, I think it can be different things to different people, but I oftentimes think of it as connecting to ancestral medicine. It's the way that people healed and took care of themselves for thousands of years until, we started working with pharmaceuticals, basically in the last 100, 200 years. So that's really a new way working with our health versus herbalism is basically working with plants. And so it can be drinking tea, it can be applying plants to the body, it can be, adding herbs to our food. So I think of it as food as medicine mostly, and sipping on tea. So I love adding in, maybe a little bit more rosemary or ginger to your meal, or garlic to support your immune system. So I really think of it as just simple ways of nourishing ourselves and taking care of ourselves, and things that our great-great-grandparents or their great-great-grandparents, it's things that they would recognize. So eating foods that are whole foods, that are nourishing, that are generally organic, and nothing too complicated. I just like to hang out with plants and let them nourish me. And then in terms of flower essences, that is medicine that is very gentle. So it's basically, it was designed by this doctor, Dr. Bach, and he lived in England, and he was working with people and noticing that the undercurrent of all illness seemed to be emotional. And so he identified these 38 different emotional states and was in nature and realized, these different flowers help with these different emotional states. For example, the elm tree is really supportive if we're feeling overwhelmed. So I think of elm for overwhelm, and you can see that in the elm tree, there's just like this groundedness. So oftentimes if people feel like, so scattered and there's just too much going on, oftentimes in postpartum, it just can be so much information, there's so much to process, and there is a sense of overwhelm. So I love thinking of you can work with this vibrational medicine, which is basically a bowl of water that flowers sit in, and they share their vibration with the water. And then you can take the water and either have a couple drops internally, or you can apply it to your skin, basically just in some way coming in contact with that water that was in contact with that plant. So it's like one of the most sustainable forms of medicine, because you don't need to harvest very much of the plant, and it's very dilute, so it's kind of the form that most people may have come in contact with is Rescue Remedy, is a flower essence blend. So that's 5 different flower essences all together in a blend. So that can be really supportive for emotional support as well. But so that's kind of like a brief description of what flower essences are. Is just a vibrational medicine that kind of reminds our cells and our emotional body, there are different ways of reacting in this situation. So for another example of a flower essence I love is pine. Pine helps with any feelings of guilt or shame or shoulds, or I wish I had done this, I should have done this. And it's just like, you know what? You're perfect. Everything is divine, and everything happens as it's meant to happen, which sometimes that's really hard to hear. But anyway, pine, I love for just releasing any feelings of shoulda, coulda, woulda, guilt or shame. And I just feel like in our culture, there's so much of that, like the blame game, the shame game, he should have done this, she should have done that. And it's like, no, it is what it is. And we're all doing the best we can, So
I love it.
Oh,
I love it. I'm sorry. I am literally over here, I want to go roll in the woods and hug all the trees and drink all the flower juice. And I am so caught up in all of it. I literally think it's something that just seems so distant to so many of us. And it's something so basic and ingrained in our history that has just been so much of a disconnect. And I think it's something that's so more of like, like when people are like, oh, like we're just so busy and overwhelmed by all the, technology and the like structure of our society and everything. And like, just like go take a walk in the woods and things like that. Like it's so much deeper than that. And there's so many ways that we can be like connecting back and grounding ourselves. And, like, I mean, like, I am just like at this state right now that I do feel like it's just sometimes you just need to surround yourself with that kind of environment and like throw yourself into it because like you just feel like so incredibly overwhelmed with those things that you cannot control. And so I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think again is something that I'm so intrigued and interested in learning about and sharing with the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think it can be as simple as a walk in nature, or, just taking a moment to water your plants, or just look at one of your plants. If you have those beautiful plants in your background too, like, it can be as simple as just, taking a deep breath, sitting under a tree for your lunch, or, for just even a moment, just find a big tree and sit under it and feel that energy. So it can be so incredibly simple. And I know that sense of overwhelm so much. Like what brought me into herbalism was I was living in New York City. I got Lyme disease. I got really sick and I had to leave. And so I moved to Colorado to be closer to my family and to study at an herb school here. And it was through working with plants that it brought me into doula life and wanting to support women more and supporting families and connecting with flower essences. So I had more of a fast hustle-y life in New York City. And I just was like, I need to, roll around in nature, be with the trees, and do something that was like a little more grounding and nourishing. And now I feel like with the tools in my toolkit, I could thrive in New York City again. But I do love being able to be in the mountains in Colorado here and connect with nature on a regular basis. It is really, I feel very fortunate. So, but you can do it anywhere.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like that's what you're bringing into this conversation, and what you're doing in general too, is like allowing others to see that like you can do this from anywhere. You don't need to be like immersed in the middle of the woods, like strap on a backpack and like throw yourself in like on a crazy wild adventure for a week or something. Like we can be doing simple things to just start like regulating our nervous system and connecting back with nature and really like in tuning into our body. And I think pregnancy and birth and postpartum is such a unique opportunity to do that work, because I think we are taking a deeper look at our body and what's happening. And we're, interested in nourishing our baby responsibly, or just like, like learning all that we can. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to, as you're learning how to care for new life, take that time to do those same things for yourself, because you are not, over, your life is still continuing, and it's not something like, oh, like I'm, this way and I can't help myself, but I can, like generate this life to have a better life. Like you still can be someone that is like constantly being worked on and loving yourself in that way too. So the whole idea of like reparenting yourself and really like opening up. I think motherhood has shown me that like there is so much more to life, and I'm still continuously shocked when I learn new things. So, I love it. I love it all.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And it is so true. Like you really have to make sure that you're taken care of before you can take care of anyone else, because kids can feel that when you're, maybe not when they're an infant, they can't like voice it or anything, but they can feel when you're not taking care of yourself. And so that is one thing I wish my mother had some of these tools and known how to take care of herself better during her postpartum times. Cause I just know, it's like you can get so depleted so quickly. So one flower essence that I find specifically for that I love too is red chestnut. And it's kind of the essence that helps you put on your gas mask first and make sure that all of your needs are being met, because you have to be really nutritionally just resourced in order to grow a baby, in order to feed a baby. You know, if you're the birthing person or the breastfeeding or chest feeding person, like your nutritional needs are vast. And so I think that red chestnut essence, it reminds us, okay, I gotta feed myself before I can feed this little one. So some of the foods that I find that can be really helpful in pregnancy and postpartum, I love hemp seeds. So this is a really easy thing you could just sprinkle on almost anything, a salad, any kind of entree, add it to a smoothie, add it to some soup, you know, add it to your trail mix. I add it into like cookies all the time, lactation cookies or bars. But hemp seeds are really lovely because they have a really high amount of protein and healthy fats. They have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. So I've found working with pregnant and postpartum mamas, oftentimes there can be some anxiety. And part of that is because as you're growing a babe or feeding a babe, they need a lot of healthy fats in order to grow their brain and their nervous system. And if we're not eating enough healthy fats, the placenta, or if you're breastfeeding, the body will pull the omega-3 fatty acids from your brain or from your nervous system. And so it is like, that is being pulled out of your body one way or another. So if you're not eating it, it can really deplete your nervous system. And, you know, that's part of the reason why mom brain happens, because your brain is shrinking because your fats are going to feed baby. But if you can get healthy fats into your body, you know, I find omega-3 fatty acids, fish oil or hemp seeds are two really easy ways to do that. So I love hemp seeds, are one of my favorites. So I oftentimes think of food as where's the fat, where's the fiber, where's the protein. So those are the three things that I'm always looking for. And I also want to honor there are different ways of eating, and I want to honor whatever feels right to you. You know, I listened to one of your recent podcast episodes that I really loved about being plant-based. And for some people, fat doesn't feel good in their body. So I think feel into your body, see what feels right for you and true for you. Like for some people, a reduced fat diet feels amazing. For others, they're like, where is the fat? And they crave it. So I think just noticing what feels right for you and listening to that inner guide, because there are so many opinions. There are so many, you know, you can find a study that says this, and then you can find a study that says the opposite. You know, they're both from whatever PubMed. And so it's like, oh, well, who's right? What's true?
Yeah, it's definitely like I 100% feel exactly that way. You know, it is uniquely to yourself, and it does take a little bit of a deeper understanding and connecting with how you are feeling with certain things that you're fueling your body with. And I think it's something to kind of like play with and have fun with and really explore, because like you said, there is so many different options out there, and each of them will tell you like, this is the way to eat, or that's the way to eat, or this is that. And I think it's just understanding like what food has the potential to do for you and where you can find those things, and then testing it out and seeing like, you know, before you take a supplement, maybe try a specific food that has that same nutrient in it, and, you know, like just playing with it and having fun with it. And I think like seeing like how your body reacts to it is so amazing and awesome. And I think it's like super important to understand that like we're free to eat all these different ways and like allow our body to feel that freedom. Because I think like when it comes to like restrictions and things like that, like that's where like things go wrong. But if you're seeing it as like, I'm going to eat more hemp seeds, you know, to give myself like more healthy fat, and I'm going to like feel my body in this way, then it like really flips the script of like, you're not restricting yourself. You're giving yourself something that may be beneficial and fueling your body in such a amazing way. So it's kind of like, just try it and, be open to exploring different options. And I think like that's what I found the most. And I love like connecting with people that like see that and agree with that and like don't see it as like a restrictive way of eating. It's more like finding nourishing things that are going to fuel your body and do like amazing, wonderful things for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just so, we're all so different. And some people really like that idea of like all or nothing. Like I'm not going to eat this, or I am only going to eat this. So some people really thrive on that all or nothing mentality, and some people need more of a moderate approach. Like they could never be like, I'm never going to eat gluten again. Like, but they could say, I'm not going to eat gluten very often or something, So I think knowing yourself too, like, is it easier for you to be all or nothing, or is it easier for you to be moderate and to kind of like weave things in? But regardless, I think of like, what can I add before thinking about like, what to take away? And also I oftentimes wonder like, what would my grandparents or great grandparents recognize? Like, would they recognize Cheetos? Probably not, even though they might be really yummy in the moment, like,
Right.
like for a minute. But, they would definitely recognize roasted vegetables or a roasted chicken or something, So I try to think of like, okay, what would my great grandmother understand, and what would she put on her plate, Oftentimes I do find gluten and dairy can be helpful to eliminate, especially if somebody has a colicky baby. Oftentimes those foods are just can be a little more inflammatory, a little more challenging to digest. So sometimes cutting those out can make people feel better or make baby feel better. So I like to put that out there as like a possibility that I've seen change lives overnight, but also like do what feels right for you, because it can get overwhelming to make those changes.
Yeah, I have recently, cut out cheese or dairy products from what I'm consuming, because I did notice that I was not really feeling the best that I could, like with that in my system. And it might be something that I bring back eventually, but it's again like playing with that and just seeing like, hey, like if I cut this out, like how do I feel? Do I feel better? Okay, like maybe like let's leave it kind of off the table or off the plate, if you will, like, for a little bit, and just see like how can I get what I thought like maybe that specific food was doing for me in a different way and a different alternative. Like I also have not eaten meat in years, like I guess like over like 15 years. Like I eat fish, but I have not had any sort of meat. Again, it's just, like finding different ways, and also like respecting like cultural differences and things like that too. Like you might have specific reasons that you don't eat certain types of food, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, two other things I wanted to mention that you could add in that can sometimes feel really nice. Sauerkraut, or some kind of fermented food, that can be really, really supportive for our gut microbiome, for our digestion. And oftentimes, if you are chest feeding or breastfeeding, that helps babies' digestion dramatically too. So I love sauerkraut or kimchi. And then beans too can be really helpful. Some people have difficulty digesting beans if they haven't been eating beans in their diet, but sometimes you can just add like a tablespoon a day until your digestion starts to be more able to break that down. But I find beans are really nice because they are really high in fiber and also in protein. They're also really great at clearing out excess cortisol and excess hormones from the body. So one thing that happens in pregnancy is you're producing so many hormones. Like I think they say you're making as many hormones in a day as you usually make in a month or something. So that's a lot of hormones for your body to have to break down. So supporting the liver in any way that you can, the way that you can do that is with eating beans, because it helps to clear those excess hormones from the body, and makes it a little bit easier for the liver to process that as well.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think it's just so important to understand like what each food can do for us and the benefits that they have. And I think like, having resources out there that are going to allow us to explore those things and play with those things. So, do you have any other foods or herbs that you specifically find supportive in the pregnancy and postpartum period?
Yeah, there's a couple herbs that I really love. So in a tea blend, raspberry leaf comes to the top of my mind for pregnancy and postpartum. But it's just it's basically the leaves of raspberry bushes. So if you have any raspberry bushes in your yard and you're not using any pesticides, you can always just trim those raspberry leaves and you could eat them, or you can make them into a tea. So it has a little bit of that sweet tannic sweetness that raspberries have. And it's really amazing for uterine tone. And so it helps to kind of shrink the uterus, bring it back into tone and shape. It supports bladder health. It has been shown to be helpful, especially in the third trimester. If people take it, it's said to help reduce the time of labor. So labor tends to go a little bit more smoothly and easily and quickly if people have been drinking raspberry leaf tea. It also can help with milk production in postpartum and increases oxytocin in the body. So that's that love hormone. And I love raspberry leaf. So it's very nutritive, and full of magnesium and calcium. Another one I think of for that is nettles. So this is also known as stinging nettles. And I really find nettles to be one of my favorite herbs at any time of life. It's so nutritive dense and again, packed full of that calcium, magnesium, potassium, so high in vitamins and minerals. And so if you're growing a baby or feeding a baby, I mean, that's like pulling so many resources from the body. And so just making sure that we're refilling our cup with really dense, like beautiful mineral rich tea. And the other one that comes to mind is linden. So linden, I love for that nervous system support. This is another tree, the linden tree. You may see that in the fall. It starts to, it has these beautiful heart-shaped leaves. And oftentimes things that have a heart shape can help our physical heart. So sometimes heart-shaped leaves in nature are also heart medicine. So linden is one of those plants. It's very supportive for the nervous system. It's very moistening and cooling and just very relaxing. So I love that again for that nervous system support in postpartum and that moistening quality too. Like I feel like sometimes postpartum is considered a vata state in Ayurvedic herbal medicine, which is kind of like a dry state. Also, oftentimes like wind is associated with that energy. So I just think of like moistening the body and bringing in more nutrient dense food. So I love linden for just helping us feel like juicy, moisturized, and just really resourced and soothed. Our nervous system soothed. So I love linden for postpartum too. And you can put that in a infused oil and use that for infant massage is really lovely, or for massaging mama postpartum. If you're doing like a body massage, you could apply that externally, or drinking the tea internally. So I love an idea that people could make a tea if you wanted to buy herbs. I like mountain rose botanicals or Pacific botanicals, mountain rose herbs or Pacific botanicals. You can buy herbs by bulk. So you could get raspberry leaf, nettles, and linden, and you could just do a tablespoon of each in a big quart jar and fill it with hot water and then strain it after a couple hours and drink that through the day. That would be a really lovely tonic that would be supportive for postpartum.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely, I've never heard of linden. But red raspberry and nettles is something that I thoroughly consumed in my third trimester, and even probably even starting in my second, and then like increasing the amount towards the end. And I definitely feel like, it put me in a better place. I felt very like grounded. I know that I heard like so much about like the strengthening of your uterus. And I mean, I will say like I had an amazing labor and completely unmedicated. Like it was fast, and I think my uterus was very strong and ready to go.
That's
And
amazing.
and with the healing process as well, I think it's just something to, um, remind yourself. And even, later on in the postpartum period, like still resorting back to consuming these foods and teas, and grounding yourself, and remembering to take that time to feel nourished and really, listen to what your body is wanting and needing. And yeah, I think it's so amazing, like, what you're doing, and remembering to consume things like that, to help nourish our body. Because I think sometimes we're like searching externally for different resources, or, like, oh, like if we just do this or add this to our plate, or, like I think like all of those things are very important. Like, like taking time for yourself, like maybe taking a bath, but like understanding like if you add like magnesium to that bath, like if you just have some like salts and everything, like it just amplifies the benefits of it. Maybe if you're taking a walk through the woods, like sipping on a tea and like really like nourishing your body fully, and really again like amplifying those benefits, I think can do so much.
I love that. Yeah. I think it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be the simplest thing. And, I know postpartum can get so overwhelming and hard to find any time to rest or nourish yourself. So, even if it's just getting some tea from Celestial Seasonings from the store or whatever, and just making a little cup of tea once in a while, like just doing whatever you can to tend to yourself, I think is so valuable. And oh my gosh, yeah, Epsom salt in bath. I'm a huge fan of that. It's so helpful for just flooding the body with magnesium and pulling out toxins from the body. It's also great as like a energetic shield if we have an experience that we just want to shake off. Oh, an Epsom salt bath, it just like clears it away. I love Epsom salt for that.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to add, in telling a new mom, going through this process, and looking for, herbalism, nutrition, flower essence, like information, where they can kind of get started, or just like something that you wish you would have known, or you try to instill in your clients, the most?
Yeah, thank you. Beautiful question. I would say, another great resource I want to mention is Rebecca's Apothecary. So that's an apothecary here in Boulder, Colorado, where I work part-time, and they have a beautiful pregnancy tea and a nursing tea. So if you want something that's already prepared, I do really love all the products that Rebecca's makes, and she has, it's just she's been running it for 18 years. She started out as a doula and started, making things that support families and support women. And so I love her product line. I'm not an affiliate. She doesn't have an affiliate program, but I love her and I believe in her product. So that's like an easy place to go. And I oftentimes teach workshops there through Rebecca's that are online. So if people are in other places, I also have workshops and classes that I teach through my website, and I have a podcast, Thyme in the Studio. But I think one thing that I learned recently is just to celebrate your small wins. So I read this book, The Gap and the Gain, and it has this really simple journaling practice. So I'm going to make a little freebie kind of related to this. It'll be on my website soon. But the idea is just have like a cup of afternoon tea and write down 3 wins from your day. Maybe, whoa, I got to take a shower today. When you're postpartum, that is a big deal. I got to snuggle with my baby and they took a nap for 2 hours. Whoa, that would be huge. I made something to eat for myself. That's a huge win. So, writing down 3 wins from the day and then planning 3 wins for the next day. Maybe they don't happen, but just planting that seed of like, what would feel wonderful? What felt wonderful today? And then what would feel wonderful tomorrow? And just having a little afternoon tea and writing those 3 things down, like celebrating 3 things from today and planning 3 beautiful things for tomorrow. Like that's, I think more and more in my life, that is a way that I'm bringing in more gratitude, more excitement, more vitality, and more clarity, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed in postpartum, in life in general. And if you can just simplify, like, okay, what are 3 cool things that happened today? What could be 3 cool things I could make happen tomorrow? And that, I find, simplifying life for the postpartum families is key, and finding things to celebrate is key. So that's my little tip there. And yeah, if people want to connect with me or work with me further, you can find me. My website is thymeinthestudio.com. You can also find my podcast, Thyme in the Studio. That's thyme like the herb. And I'm on Instagram as @Sara Marie Studio and @Thyme in the Studio podcast.
I love it. I love it. I am so glad that we have connected and really gotten to share these conversations. And I'm excited to continue to stay connected with you and hear, what you have going on and what your life is, bringing. So thank you so much.
Oh, Sara Marie, thank you so much. It's been such a treat to meet another Sara Marie interested in postpartum. I was like, that's so funny when I crossed your path, and I was like, oh my God, we have so much in common and so many overlapping interests. So thank you so much for inviting me to talk on your podcast. And I'm so excited to share as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being open to collaborate. And it's such a treat to be able to talk with you and connect with you in such a real way.
Thank you. Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.